Wait for it. This is probably one of the emotional songs for me on the entire track, on the play. Just everything about this song. I just listened to it again, probably for like the 100th time, but it makes me literally bring tear to my eyes. Like, it makes me want to cry for such a sentimental reason of combining desire for change whenever things are just not going your way and you feel like you're fighting the grain, a little bit of survivor guilt in there occasionally, and just the longing for more is what this song brings out in me. And for those of you all that haven't listened to what we're doing here on the Stay Alive podcast is my name is Air, and I am actually going through the legendary Hamilton musical and one by one, each song, paralleling it to human trafficking. As a survivor that's now a victor or a thriver, I really relate to this musical. It is my favorite. It is something that I have listened to in the dark times, in the good times, in between, and it relates so much to slavery whenever the founding of our nation was happening, but also modern day slavery known as human trafficking right here, still in New York City, in the United States, in our backyards. I am very much someone that when I'm speaking on stage or I am working for advocacy, that I let people know that it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter who your parents were. It doesn't matter if you are from a very affluent family or if you have been living in poverty. It can happen. And if we do not actually address this crime in the United States, it will continue to happen at just extreme levels. So each one of these episodes stands on its own, but as you go through, if you go through it with me in order, you'll understand more of my story, more about how it relates, because we are building on each song, just like the play builds, but also how human trafficking really manifests in the United States. And more importantly, how we can interrupt the cycle and then protect not just you and me, but the future generations. So the song Wait For It actually isn't from like who I expected to sing it. So and Burr actually approaches this. Even me trying to say who is singing this really just like influences like my mind here. Because up until this point, I've been relating Burr to more of someone that is sitting on the sidelines or someone that doesn't really care about making real change unless it benefits him. And at times, I've even seen him more on the enemy lines. In this case, like I've compared his character's attributes to sometimes be of those that like somebody that's abusive or a trafficker would convey. But in this particular song, I'm putting all of that to the side, and I ask you for it as well because it's a different approach I want to take with this character. And this song provokes different feelings as a result. So it actually starts as a kind of lovesick song of not necessarily knowing if you're on the right side or not, which still could bridge back to everything I just mentioned. But he's really talking about being in love with a different woman that is married to a British officer. She's married to the enemy, which is interesting because I've been relating him to the enemy. And this is where he's like has this gray line. And maybe if that's the case, he needs to reevaluate where he really stands on things. But he is talking about, not understanding love and how it doesn't discriminate and it's between the sinners and the saints. And you can just see this wavering of what happens whenever somebody is lukewarm about a cause or not really understanding what they stand for. And for Andrew Burr, that's been his problem the entire play is he doesn't actually have a real voice that's authentic to him. He's always skating the line between right and wrong and what's in it for him rather than just saying, this is who I am as my identity. And if you're someone that's falling in that category, you probably understand all too well how it can be a confusing and tough life to live. But as the song goes on, it's whenever things just get really kind of dark and emotional because he's talking about his legacy, he's talking about making good choices, and he's talking about being patient rather than being active. And whenever I think of that, I kind of actually relate it to how I, as a person, have came up through the ranks from, the bottom of the barrel all the way up, whether you want to talk about my family not coming from much, whether you want to talk about the trauma or just the journey of like becoming an activist or an entrepreneur, how you always feel like you're just on the edge of something just really, really big that's going to make such a big difference. And there's definitely been times where I've cried myself to sleep because I'm like going against the grain, trying to bring up advocacy or change a bill or, be more active on human rights. But it feels like it's falling on deaf ears. This, even as I share this podcast and as I share, the limiting beliefs that kind of come up with people when it comes to change, it's always about like almost hitting your head against the wall. Because at the end of the day, you just feel like this kind of line is like lose, 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 lose. Like, ouch. Like, I know what it's like to be hit physically, and I know what it's like to be hit emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And it seems like it's a waste of time sometimes. Just as he's conveying, he's like, he's trying to waste no time, but it feels like time is just slipping by over and over, and it's just out of his grasp, out of his reach. And he's like trying to stay strong and trying to like be like, okay, I'm willing to wait for it. I'm willing to do, not necessarily what it takes, as he says, it takes and it takes and it takes. He's referring to time controlling him. And yes, this is very much an external locus of control, which relates back to this character. But as I listen to it, I just feel the emotion of like not knowing necessarily what to do, not being left with any instructions, which is a whole different line of like, when they died, they left me no instructions. What I'm doing, what activists tend to do, especially when they've been charting new waters, is I don't know necessarily what's going to work. I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I just know I'm trying to protect the people that don't have the voice right now, the people that were like me, and like knowing that like death doesn't discriminate and that people are dying to human trafficking every single day. And it's just a matter of like just trying to reduce that number, trying to reduce those in slavery. So this song just takes a heavy, heavy toll and a heavy hit mentally and emotionally. And just knowing that we fall and we make our own mistakes and we rise and we fall and we break. I can't tell you how many times that I've been on the brink of breaking because of the activism, because of the reach back, because of the fight. But just like the song, we keep living anyway. And that's my best shot.